official. Harry and Meghan have not received an Emmy nomination for their series about themselves and their time in the royal family. This is rather fascinating news because many were thinking that not only would they be nominated for their documentary series, that they would win. There was even an article in Variety published just a couple days ago showing in red that yes, Harry and Meghan, they'll win this award. But what happens when not only do you not win, you're not even nominated? What does that say about the Hollywood establishment? I think it tells Harry and Meghan that not only has this collapse of their Spotify deal really damaged their brand, but the brand is continuing to tank. And that people throughout Hollywood are just incredibly wary of Harry and Meghan and their inability to do something so incredibly simple, so incredibly timeless, so incredibly classy. And that is to tell the truth, regardless of how it makes you look. I think they're looking at Harry and Meghan's reality TV series, and whereas if that had been, let's say, just airing a couple weeks ago and then got nominated, I think it could perhaps win or have been part of the selection. But that was not, I think, as an indication that between the 6 months it's aired and now 6-7 months, that the public is going, you know what? We're not sure if we trust Harry and Meghan. And Hollywood, I think, is thinking the same. Not only do you have just the general lack of trust in Harry and Meghan as a brand, you have overall Hollywood having a much better insight into what's going on in Camp Harry and Meghan, and it's not looking good. And even though inviting Harry and Meghan, nominating their series would get them to go to the Emmys, the Academy of Television Arts is like, you know what? We're okay. And that, I think, is a death blow to Harry and Meghan and their future in Hollywood. I think pretty much at this point, they're probably done. I don't think their Netflix documentary on the Invictus Games will capture hearts and minds. I don't think it'll perform super well. I don't think anything else they have in the pipeline will go anywhere. So the question is, what do they do now? That Meghan's Hollywood vision, the reason she grabbed Harry and dragged him to California, she told him this would work. She told him their future was here. She told him that this could be better than the UK, that they could raise their children in privacy, that all these things could come together. And it has completely collapsed underneath her feet. And I think that is incredibly both sad in terms of a family aspect, you could say, but also indicative that Meghan Markle never had the juice to begin with. And that this series, while it performed well, it's not a reflection on Harry and Meghan, but a reflection on the Jerry Springer effect that they bring to the royal family. So we're going to go into these details today and why I think this is really truly an awful thing for them going forward. They really needed this nomination, and that they didn't get it, it's going to hurt. It's going to really hurt. But if you guys haven't been here to Royal News Network, my name is Brittany and I provide compelling royal commentary. So if you guys want to subscribe and be back for more on not only Harry and Meghan, I know I focused a lot on them, but we're going to be talking about all the royals. I had a great idea for a video, why the Norwegian royals are the coolest, because they kind of are. They're kind of laid back. They're very progressive in some ways, and I'm not super progressive, but I appreciate that they are a little, you could say, more flexible. In fact, the Crown Princess was a single mother when she married her now husband. So I just think that's super cool and super interesting to talk about. There's a lot of great love stories within the Norwegian royals, so we're going to do something on that. I will be also going to the Sweden and the Netherlands later this year, and so I'm going to do an introductory video on those royal families because I love covering the Swedes and the Dutch. I think they're so fun. So if you guys are interested in that, again, love to have you back. I also have, before I'm going to Sweden, I'm going to Germany and Austria with some of you. So if you guys want to come on with me to that trip, I only have 5 days left. Once that 5 days is up, nobody else can sign up for that trip. So I'm super excited. I can't wait to connect with everybody going on that trip. I'm super stoked about that. We had a great time in London, and so earlier this year, so I just can't wait for that trip to go on. And we'll be going to Bavaria in Germany, and then Salzburg in Austria, where they film The Sound of Music or parts of The Sound of Music, and ending in Vienna. And it's all filled with castles and palaces. Is there anything better than castles and palaces in Europe? I don't think so. And I also have, just real quick, a weekly newsletter, Royal Wire, and a fashion channel, which has been on a bit of a hiatus because my sister just got married, which was wonderful. Thank you guys for all your warm wishes. There was just so much going on. I'm still recovering a bit. So we'll be starting next week again on Tiara Tuesday because I'm super excited. It'll be counting down from basically worst to best royal wedding tiaras. I'm so excited. I've been like researching and finding all sorts of interesting things about these royal weddings that I really wasn't a true royal watcher in like the early 2000s when I was like still in high school. And there's some really interesting royal weddings out there. So guys, I'm super excited for that video. We'll be looking at royal wedding tiaras from the last about 25 years. So it's going to be super awesome. Can't wait for you guys to join. But back to this news about the Emmys. Oh my goodness, when I was remembering this morning, I'm like, okay, I gotta remember, because I knew the Emmy nominations were coming up, and then I had seen this Friday article, had Harry and Meghan there, and I'm like, okay, I was bracing for it, although I did think it would be rather ironic if they were nominated and then the show didn't go forwards because the writer's strike is still going on. I thought that would have been kind of funny, but I waited and waited, and I was like, oh, 11:30, let me look through the list. No Harry and Meghan. Am I right here? No Harry and Meghan? Oh, I'm sure some plates were shattering in Montecito when that happened, because that is a huge rejection from Hollywood. Number one here. This is a massive rejection. There's no way about it. That is what this is. Harry and Meghan's documentary. If you watched it, I watched it. First 3 episodes, awfully boring. Incredibly dull. They are so up on their own stinking love story. It's almost obnoxious. And like, you guys aren't Romeo and Juliet. Give me a break. She was a middling actress in Canada who had connections and was trying to get into the royal sphere, happened to find a dim-witted royal husband who was willing to marry her, and bada bing, bada boom. It's not like she was working McDonald's in Compton and happened to meet a prince while he was doing a tour and she happened to serve him fries, let's say at 11:30 at night. That's a love story, guys. That's an actual love story. Meghan Markle and Harry's story, it's not a love story. And oftentimes, too, I feel like you can't maybe necessarily totally say that you have this huge love story until you've been together many, many years, close to a decade. Then you can maybe start to fashion yourselves as a true love story, because I think the true test of a marriage, the true test of love, is if it can withstand the test of time. And have never been convinced Harry and Meghan's marriage would. And I think that's probably the direction things are going right now. There's a lot of rumors about that. And I would imagine the stress of all of his failure is really starting to get to them. But back to this rejection from Hollywood. This has been a years-long effort for Meghan. Meghan, since she's been a kid and was on the set of Married with Children, has wanted to be a Hollywood celebrity and a Hollywood star. Not an actress, not a singer, not anybody with a discernible talent. She just wants to be famous. That's all she's ever wanted. She couldn't really sing, so she went with acting. That's my opinion of her. Because if you read through Tom Bower's book, Revenge, which I thought was very good at laying things out, what I thought was really interesting is that there was an opportunity for Meghan to study acting more, and she declined it. And I think she declined it because she thought, well, I'm pretty. I don't have to try. It's like, look, you kind of do. You really need to do. And this is why she got middling roles her entire life. She basically got the hot girl 20-second bit. Her bit in Horrible Bosses is about 20 seconds. I don't think it even reaches the 30-second mark because I timed it once. And maybe perhaps that was her face actually being on screen, but it's so very brief. Perhaps the whole exchange lasts no more than a minute. It's very, very short time frame that she is on the screen, and all she plays is a hot FedEx girl. And I remember when they were first saying, well, she was on Horrible Bosses. I'm like, sitting there, I'm like, she was? I've seen that movie. I own that movie. Although my mom hates me mentioning that. I don't remember her on there. I don't remember her on there. And I looked at it and was like, the FedEx girl, really? I don't even remember that part until I was like, okay, let me watch this again. I was like, oh, sure, bravo, yay. And her most prominent role was on Suits, where I've seen bits of that. Oh my gosh, her acting is bad as far as I can tell. I've seen some of her other things, like she was a bad actress. She was not good at this. And ergo, Hollywood mostly rejected her. Yes, she had Suits, but that was all she was ever gonna have. Her Hallmark movies she did in between there were all awful. Like everything she did pretty much was awful because she wasn't a great actress or even really all that good or competent. And so the roles were naturally going to dry up. So Meghan Markle, throughout her whole career or attempted career in Hollywood, hit rejection after rejection after rejection. And there was a reason for that. She wasn't talented. And this Netflix series, I think, is an extension of that. And this lack of Emmy nomination is a sign once again that Hollywood has rejected Meghan Markle, that they're not interested in what she's selling, that she just doesn't even really have anything to give them. Because she doesn't. She really doesn't have a ton to offer Hollywood. And so because of that, the Emmys were like, no, we're okay. And perhaps there could have been a directing nomination for Liz, who directed their series. I think there's just so many fundamental questions about the truth that they really couldn't go anywhere. And so Hollywood just doesn't want to jump on the Harry and Meghan train, much like they have for the extent of Meghan Markle's relationship with Hollywood. When she came back after becoming a royal, there was a general interest and curiosity in what she was really about and what her and Harry could offer. But I think at this point, everybody's like, yeah, no, she had exactly what she could offer when she was an actor, which is just not that much, which is why she got no meaningful roles. So I'm sure for Meghan, this really stings, because what she has wanted for her entire life, her relentless drive, is to be accepted by Hollywood. Not for really, again, any discernible talent, but just to be outrageously famous, which you could say she is. But is it a good famous or more of an infamous bad famous? And that's a huge issue. And people in Hollywood, especially as the box office continues to tank, Disney is almost going under. They're probably going to lose $1 billion this year in the box office alone. That's not really a great look. So not including them on television's most prestigious night is definitely a huge indication of where Hollywood is sitting at this time. And the other problem Harry and Meghan have here, and I think one of the key reasons why they didn't get this nomination, is the credibility of their series. Like I said, if let's say the time between nominations and the series debuting was shorter, and granted, really, it is as short as you can get because it's 2022, that was 7 months ago. But if it was even shorter, they may have gotten the nomination because it was a big hubbubaloo, a lot of people watched and everything like that. But as time went on, very, very quickly, questions started to be raised about their credibility. And I think it raised this series questions about whether the series could be considered a nonfiction or a fiction piece. Yes, there are elements of truth, but there are elements of lies. It doesn't look good when you're utilizing stock footage from other events to try to sell your story about being stalked by the paparazzi. Every time they mentioned being stalked by the paparazzi, it was a stock photo. So they have no evidence, as far as we're aware, that the paparazzi actually were stalking Meghan. And then you have perhaps the best bit of acting or the worst bit of acting in their whole series is the phantom paparazzi guy on the scooter in the car. Where is he? Oh, we're in the Matrix, we don't know. And they just looked ridiculous because I'm like, okay, so you're telling us in this little car thing that you're being chased. You need to show this guy to actually make us believe it. I don't believe it. It looks like you're looking at ghosts or shadows. You guys look dumb doing it. It was just unbelievable that they thought, well, we could just, flip our heads around and act really concerned and that everybody would buy, oh, there's a paparazzi over there. I'm like, how would you know? And you add on top of that now, Meghan's huge blunder, the supreme idiocy of their statement in New York regarding their supposed paparazzi chase also, I think, completely adds on to this element of you don't know when Meghan Markle is telling the truth and lying. Because that paparazzi chase, again, nobody believes that actually happened, especially celebrities. Do you know what happened after Meghan Markle shared that story? Not a single celebrity, not a single one backed up her side of the story there. Nobody was coming out and going, we need to have greater regulations on the paparazzi. We need to address this issue. We need to do this and we need to do that. None of that happened. The reason was, I don't think anybody in Hollywood believed her and Harry. I say Meghan a lot, and I lean a lot of this on Meghan because I think Harry's frankly too dumb really to be following what's going on to a certain extent. I think he is very much in his bubble of self-hatred and anxiety and rage over his childhood and supposed traumas, whereas Meghan is over here in the corner trying to manipulate everything, and Harry's really either ignorant or in his own bubble or what. He's somewhere he's not right. So I really put a lot of that paparazzi chase thing on Meghan because it was so dumb. Why would you leave a secured car with blackout windows to get in a taxi cab, like to go around the block? None of it makes any sense. And I think that compounds the issues people already saw in the documentary. I saw a bunch of inconsistencies there. I've been watching the royals for a really, really long time. I saw those in the Oprah Winfrey interview. I feel like those were just compounded by the documentary series. And when they couldn't basically prove some of their points, I think everybody threw up their hands going, you need to actually sell us on this. You need to actually provide us with some evidence of wrongdoing instead of spinning a narrative that basically said that the royal family is awful, I want to be queen of the Commonwealth and they wouldn't let me, and colonialism is bad. That was basically the entire gist of their documentary series. And that they are great parents and the greatest love story ever told in the history of humanity, which nobody buys. And so they're having a huge issue there. So we have rejection now, huge credibility issues. And I think the other thing you have to think of when you look at this is that Harry and Meghan, I think to everybody, have brought about very much the Jerry Springer mentality to the royals. They are classless. They are tasteless. They are needlessly, you could say, transparent in sort of the ugly way that Jerry Springer is. Now, granted, they're a much classier version, and I did take this idea from somebody else, and I can't remember who it was, but I think it is true. They brought this Jerry Springer theatrical family drama aspect to the royals, and I think this is becoming less and less appealing to people over time. Meghan really thought, again, she was the creme de la creme when she walked into the royal fold. She thought they would all love her, that she was perfect, and that she was going to be the best thing that ever happened to the royals. And when that didn't happen, she just basically is throwing a massive hissy fit over that. She is throwing a massive temper tantrum over the fact that the royals were like, you're okay, but we do things this way, and you need to do things our way for a while. Then we may be able to change some things up, but you need to do things our way. But Meghan Markle is not mature enough for that. Meghan Markle is so arrogant that she thought a 1,000-year-old institution must conform to her, not her conform to it and then slowly change it from within. That's what Catherine's doing. That's what Sophie's doing. That's what Camilla is doing. To change a royal household, you need to have a slow and temperamental approach, not one basically a bull in a china shop demanding that everybody bend to her will. That was just never going to go anywhere. Not to mention the fact that Meghan and the grand scheme of royals, once Louis was born, I mean, Harry's significance just cratered out the floor. And so she and Harry were just never going to be as important as Catherine and William and their children. That just is how it is. And now that William has been elevated to the status of the Prince of Wales and Catherine is the Princess of Wales, their children are the Wales' children now, they have a huge footprint and influence, whereas Harry and Meghan and their children will not anymore. And George will soon become a majority. He'll turn 10 in just a little over a week. In 10 days. Can you believe it? George will be 10. I feel so old right now. I feel so old. So I think when it comes to royals, we want to see royals be royals. We want to see them be majestic. And we want them to have that little bit of separation between us and them. They're not celebrities. They don't divulge every detail of their lives. They very much have this discretion and this mystique about them, which Meghan Markle utterly self-inflicted damage on herself by saying, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go by the wisdom of the ages. I'm going to listen to Oprah Winfrey, and I'm going to bring my element of Jerry Springer into the royal family. And that has not worked out well for her and Harry, because the more they talk, the more obnoxious, the more arrogant, the more basically delusional they sound. And because of this, it hasn't worked for them at all. It's not working for them. And really, because they've turned aspects of the royal family into this freak sideshow, which they are the ringmasters of, it really has severely damaged their brand, I think, because Hollywood is looking at them going, okay, we're all famous here. And you're basically took the ultimate of being famous. You were flippin' royalty. You lived in palaces. You met diplomats. You met people. You rode in carriages. You had servants. You had decades, centuries of tradition. And you left all that to go to Hollywood, and you're acting no different than the D-list status you always were. So I think Hollywood, just in general, has no respect for them. Zero respect for them. You add on top of it the fact that they've been called out for being lazy, difficult to work with, unable to produce content, talentless, basically. Those are huge, massive issues. You can be whoever you want to be in Hollywood. Think of Robert Downey Jr. He had a rough patch in the early 2000s, but what was he? Extremely talented. And so once he got his act together, he got in Iron Man, boom, the guy was on the rise again because he had a talent of which to grow from. Meghan Markle has none of that. And you'll see this in other actors as well, that Hollywood is very forgiving, and the US public, I feel like in general, is very forgiving as long as you have talent. If you have talent and you go back to the thing you were good at, people like that redemption aspect. But the problem is Harry and Meghan have nothing to grow from because they're untalented in this space. They have no ability to do any of the things they're trying to do. And so in their inability to create content, they have 2 documentary series out for Netflix. It took them 2 years to do it. One of them was just on themselves, which is a self-obsessed series anyways. And their next thing was Live to Lead, which cratered and bombed completely. Nobody watched that thing. Absolutely nobody. I heard nothing about that. I think 1 or 2 royal reporters maybe watched it. Most people just ignored it because they're like, oh, who cares? And then we have the Invictus documentary, which I would love to support, but I can't because it comes from Harry and Meghan. And I don't trust them. I don't like them. It'll probably debut next month. We don't even have a trailer for it. And you got to think too, how much of that will feature Meghan Markle, the woman parading around in $65,000 worth of new clothes, at least 65 grand, to go to a charity event that she is just a peripheral character on. She's not even the main focus. Her husband is. The soldiers should be. And she's parading around in all this very, very expensive clothing, drawing attention to herself. I don't think any of that will play very well. So at the end of the day, Hollywood just said, no Emmy for you. And I think that is, once again, going into the quagmire of the utter and complete chaos that is brand Harry and Meghan right now. I think their Netflix deal is teetering on completely collapsing on them. I think Netflix has little to no faith in them. Yes, they happy talk because that's what you do in Hollywood. Sometimes you happy talk things. And you're like, oh, this is great. This is the best thing ever. When you know it's crap. They are known to do that. People. It's so funny being on Twitter sometimes and people are like, well, Netflix is really excited. They were talking about how happy they were about the deal. I'm like, yeah, but James Gunn also said The Flash was the greatest superhero movie ever. And he was dead wrong about that. And you also have Disney thinking that Indiana Jones was going to be the greatest thing ever, only to get basically smacked in the face at Cannes for being a bad movie. And that it's completely cratered and tanked. Perhaps will be one of the biggest flops of all time. So Hollywood is no stranger to happy talking bad situations and happy talking bad ratings. I think that's what Netflix is doing right now. Spotify saw the writing on the wall going, they can't do anything. They're basically useless. Meghan Markle, it takes 30 people, 10,000 hours of recording, Band-Aid tape, basically duct taping her to a chair to get that podcast together. And even though it was just middling at best, Spotify tried to do what it could do behind the scenes, including boosting it to #1 when anybody with half a brain knew that wasn't true, because the top 3 episodes in terms of podcasts were all Joe Rogan. You can't be the #1 podcast in terms of listens if the 3 most popular episodes on the platform at that moment were Joe Rogan's. That's not possible. And Spotify's like, they just cut their losses. They're like, we're done. We're done with this freak show. We're done with this woman who thinks that middling content, uninspiring, unoriginal, boring content was something that could be groundbreaking and game-changing. They were done. And I think the rest of Hollywood is wising up to the true craft of Harry and Meghan, which is grifting. They are after it for the money. Meghan Markle has always wanted fame and fortune, as much money as humanly possible, so she could buy as much ugly fashion as humanly possible, including Bermuda shorts from Dior, which she styled in the most uninspiring way imaginable. Why anybody thinks this woman is a fashion icon is beyond me. That looks like something I could remake from Ann Taylor for not even half the price, like a tenth or less of the price. Remake that entire outfit, which again is utterly dull. Now, it was rather interesting because Deadline said, oh, I'm sure the critics of Harry and Meghan are cheering this move. And I mean, we are. Who can blame people for finally wanting to see Harry and Meghan get their just desserts? That they deserve to get a negative reaction to all their negativity that they're putting out in the public space. But at the same time, you can also say, well, it's just nice to see that Hollywood is recognizing these two for who they really are. But when it comes to the state of their marriage and the state of the brand Sussex, I don't know what they're going to do because they don't have much to offer. I think we will at some point get a revamped of the TIG 2.0, but who really wants that? I don't think anybody wants that. Goop already exists. It's just a blatant copy of Goop. The TIG is a terrible name. It's a really awful name. Nobody knows what it means. It's kind of dumb. But I think that's the only direction Meghan Markle can go in. She was not a great actress. She's getting older, so she can only have character parts, really. And there's just nothing really for her to offer Hollywood at this stage anymore, except for being a poor man's imitation of Gwyneth Paltrow. But what about Harry? Harry's really up a creek without a paddle. He is outside of his home country. He has basically no contact with his family anymore, barely any contact with his friends from the UK. He is adrift, and he probably has no direction because he was leaning on his wife for this. His wife convinced him this was a good idea. His wife told him that she's so great that Hollywood just never appreciated her and she could just bring him in and it'll be awesome. It'll be wonderful, grand, fantastic. It'll be perfect. Just follow me, Harry. That's what Meghan said. Like the children following the Pied Piper, he just believed her and he allowed her to drag him to Hollywood so she could finally fulfill her Hollywood dreams. His desires, his wants, his needs, I think factored in very little to this decision. It was all about her. And as a result, Meghan Markle's Hollywood dreams are officially dead because she should have known years ago. She should have had half a clue that not only did people not really like her, which they didn't, but that she wasn't a great actress and she was not going to have this stellar, fantastic, amazing career that she believed that she should have. And as a result now, they're floundering. They have no idea what they're going to do. They have no clue what step to go in next. And all I can think of to say is, Harry and Meghan, this is all on you. If you wanted the easy life, if you wanted to go to birthday parties, royal weddings, if you wanted to spend the rest of your life traveling across Europe and the world being treated like royalty, well, you should have stayed royalty. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what you think of the Emmy's recent snub of Harry and Meghan. It's rather fascinating and telling where Hollywood is going, which I think is not with Harry and Meghan. So guys, again, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful week and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.